Marketing is about values.
Nike didn't call me and sell me this in a catalog. I bought this swoosh because it's ingrained in my soul.
When you have a product that really resonates with customers, the word of mouth grows like wildfire.
All right, man, we are back at it. And you sent me this article that was really interesting. Basically, a way to get to what you call negative CAC. I've heard you mention this before, and we'll get to what that means and how you can actually drive down CAC or your cost to acquire customers, depending on what industry and what channels you use. I think we're gonna have lots of applications to this. But what was that article that prompted this discussion again around negative CAC, man?
Yeah, I used to talk about this concept a lot. Negative CAC, for those of you who are new to marketing, cost to acquire a customer, right? It's what you spend in marketing to get one person to become a customer. And so we talk a lot about CAC to LTV. If I could spend, I was on a call with a client this morning, very high ticket service. They make $15,000 the moment they just close the client. And we've been hovering around like a $4,000 CAC for them, meaning in ad spend and our retainer, it's about $4,000 combined per new client that we bring them. And we lowered that down to $2,100. So basically they're spending $2,100 in all marketing costs, retainer and ad spend to achieve the closing of one client. And so we got it down to like $2,100 and they make $1,500. It's like a 6-ish X ROI, crazy high ROI.
15,000.
So cost to acquire,
right.
15,000. Sorry, yes, 15,000. Yeah. So 6X ROI.
For the people that struggle with the math when it's not visual, I just want to make sure everybody's following along. Yeah, I got you.
Appreciate that. A little slow day today. I didn't drink my coffee. Not that I really ever drink, but now that I'm a parent, I drink it more. But anyways, the those early mornings, dude. I don't know how you've done it for 15 years. I guess that's me 15 years ahead. So anyways, the cost to acquire a customer. There's this concept I learned about maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago called negative CAC. And at first I was like, how can you have a negative CAC? That makes no sense.
Yeah, you got to spend money on marketing.
You have to spend money on marketing, but where most companies that I meet with come into play, at least on like the super early stage, because I obviously work with enterprise brands and huge companies that do hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. But like a lot of the ones that just DM me every day say, I've only ever gotten clients from referral. What's the first thing I can start to do to get clients if I'm going to put a little bit of money towards it? So if you've just gotten clients from referral, if you've just gotten clients from word of mouth, your CAC is effectively zero, right? You're not spending any money. And a lot of entrepreneurs who have bootstrapped their company, they haven't raised any outside investment from venture capitalists or angels or their mom, they're kind of afraid to spend money on marketing. But in reality, as you just said, you have to spend money on marketing to grow. Like a lot of people think spending money on marketing is a bad thing. You'll see people on Twitter, you'll see people on LinkedIn, like, we achieved $1 million run rate. We have $1 million in revenue with no marketing. It's like, no, joke's on you. And I'm not just saying that as Marketing Max. Like if you can figure out a profitable CAC to LTV, then you should be spending as much money as you possibly can. You should be maxing out every single credit card and growing at blitz scale, right? But the article that I found was a perfect example of negative CAC. And what that actually means is you're not only not spending any money to acquire new customers or clients or app users or whatever it is that you're trying to get, but you're actually getting paid to do so. It is profitable when you acquire a new customer. And I had a friend in e-com tell me, oh, that makes sense. Like a lot of people come back and purchase frequently in our e-commerce store. It's probably like, they spend $100, but you only spent $50 to acquire them. No. That's not even what negative CAC is. Negative CAC is your marketing is not only covered by a different expense or a different revenue stream, but your marketing is profitable from a different revenue stream. And the example,
it's generating revenue, not just bigger ticket sales or longer and higher LTV. It's actually generating revenue in another way, separate from the product that the marketing is marketing, right?
Yes, that's a much better way to explain it. Thank you. That's why I have you here.
I say few word when you say lot. That's all we do. That's
the marketing division, the cost of marketing your core business is profitable from other revenue streams. I run this in my business. So my first business I created after selling my e-commerce ad agency 4 years ago was a media business. I created Marketing Max. And Marketing Max is not my personal brand. Marketing Max is a media business, right? We have a team of writers that write the newsletters daily, that help me write the newsletters daily. We have social media people that help me turn videos that I create into much more engaging videos with animations and B-roll and all sorts of really cool things. But most importantly, that media company in and of itself is profitable. We spend, let's call it X amount a month, and we make on average, between 50 and 100% of what we spend per month on Marketing Max, because we're typically like 50 to 80% profit margins, depending on the month, on the media company. And what I mean by that is brands like HubSpot and Notion and Monday.com and you name it. Tony Robbins is one of our biggest sponsors. They pay to get in front of the Marketing Max audience. So the Marketing Max media business is profitable. And then all of our unsold inventory in our newsletters and a handful of our promoted tweets go towards promoting my other businesses. So I'm able to acquire customers not just for $0 because I can just plug it into my newsletter, but I'm literally able to acquire customers for negative dollars.
Mhm.
Like I'm getting paid to acquire customers because my media vision, AKA the marketing engine that feeds all of the customers to my current offers, which is Max's team, my new agency, my current agency, and a couple other products that I have and services that I have, I'm profitable in doing so. And the example that we're probably could have started off the podcast with, but the article that I sent you is a great example of that. Basically, Hurst, Hearst, which is one of the biggest media companies in the world, has been acquiring a ton of Texas-based media companies. Why have they been acquiring a bunch of Texas-based media companies, and particularly Texas-based newspapers when newspapers are dying? What they realized is newspapers have the same problem that I have, which is there's so much inventory in a daily newspaper. There's so many ad spots to sell. It's very hard to sell that. And so what they realized was they can promote Hearst's magazines in the unsold ad inventory. And so if the newspaper is break even or barely profitable selling their normal ads to the normal local people in that normal town, right, in that newspaper, the unsold inventory can go to promote magazines, and their data showed that most of their frequent highest spending magazine subscribers read newspapers every single day. So they're acquiring media properties that are already maybe break even, maybe a little bit profitable. And even if they're not profitable, that's fine. If they're break even, it's free marketing for their magazine subscriptions. And so the example that the article gave was, if you read the Dallas Morning paper and you're in the arts and leisure section, you might want to subscribe to Vogue as a newspaper. You might want more in-depth writing. You might want Vogue. And so if that art and leisure section of the newspaper has only ever really sold half of their inventory for the last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, then maybe at least at full price, then they can come in and promote Vogue subscriptions. Go to vogue.com/sign up for your first month free, or scan this QR code and get 50% off your first year of a Vogue magazine subscription. It's a brilliant marketing strategy that I'm surprised we haven't seen more companies take advantage of. The best example is HubSpot acquiring Trends, Sam Parse, or sorry, not Trends. They also acquired Trends, but what's it called? The Hustle. Thank you. Trends was their premium subscription. HubSpot, multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company, acquired The Hustle because they sponsored The Hustle so much they realized, like, why don't we just own this property, right? Another example is SEMrush bought, I forget what it was called, but they bought some small SEO blog. And instead of just paying the blog $10,000 a month or whatever they would do to make it so that the moment you land on that homepage for super nerdy SEO people, you would see an ad for SEMrush. They said, why don't we just buy it? We'll save more money. And they did it that way. So this idea of negative CAC owning a separate media division or finding a way to bring in revenue from your existing marketing division is the ultimate hack to scaling any company, because it literally doesn't cost you any cash, you know, at the end of every month to market your own main business. That's what the article was about. And I thought it was a great example from Hurst buying local.
When you sent it to me as a journalism school grad, I was like, wait, people are buying newspapers? What the heck? I was probably thinking, like a lot of our listeners, like, wait, what? Who's spending money to acquire a media company whose main business is selling newspapers? And really their main business is selling ad inventory in newspapers, as you called out. But that's the thing. Forget kind of the old timiness of newspapers, as much as that pains me, because I, you know, was a journalism grad, and like newspapers were still a thing when I was in college. I'm dating myself here, but the translation to our businesses, whether you're B2B, B2C, is exactly where you kind of made the jump with HubSpot and SEMrush. And it is about the opportunity with a media company. We've been hearing from people for a long time, especially in B2B marketing, that the new way to build a brand is not to have a marketing department, but to have a marketing department that thinks like a media company. Well, if they're thinking like a media company in the way that they create content, they create for their audiences, they engage audiences across platforms, they think about, you know, not just a buyer journey, but a subscriber journey. Well, maybe they should start thinking about, well, how do we monetize this media company, and learning from media companies in how do they do that? Premium subscriptions, ad inventory, sponsor deals, these sorts of things. And I think those are some great examples. I think, there's another SaaS brand, I think, Paddle, that acquired a media entity in the B2B space. Like, there have been several examples of this, of SaaS companies buying up media brands. And I think it's, you know, it's a really good example of this. And it's just taking that media mentality and going one step further in your marketing. Because I've been a big proponent of, you know, building out a media property. It's where you and I first met when I was at teamwork.com, and I was running our media property of Agency Life, which was monthly webinars, a newsletter, a weekly podcast. And, you know, we never got to the point to where that was necessarily generating revenue in and of itself, but I could easily see how, if you continue down that path, it definitely could be. I've got one other idea that kind of sprang to mind as we were talking about negative CAC, but based on kind of the things I was saying there, anything else you wanted to add to what I was just saying? That
I like to think about it, as I've said many, many, many times, marketing comes down to two things. You're getting people's attention and you're converting that attention into dollars, right? Let's break down the first part for a second. When getting people's attention, there's only a handful of ways to do that. You could either get it more or less for free with word of mouth and referrals, or for free, but you have to spend time. So you're really investing your time, not money, but investing your time, AKA not spending any money, to create content and letting the algorithm surface your social content to new people. Or you can buy attention. That's what Facebook ads is. That's what Google ads is. That's what TV commercials are. You're buying people's attention, right? Another option to buy people's attention is influencers. You partner with an influencer for two reasons. You partner with an influencer to get the attention of their audience, but also to associate the positive affinity that that influencer's followers have with that influencer. You're trying to also have that kind of positive affinity, juju, pass on to your brand, right? But this idea of negative CAC, creating a separate entity, media division, or finding a way to monetize your marketing division, is very simply taking the idea of influencer marketing a step further. Instead of partnering with someone who already has an audience and is monetizing their existing audience, you're basically creating that existing audience in-house.
Yeah. And it's very similar to what we talked about, man, it was probably maybe a month or so ago. And you talked about this with your newsletter, and you're recommending this to clients, even when they're not monetizing the newsletter. And that is, there's the brand of the newsletter in front of the curtain, and then there is the company selling the product or service that's a little bit backstage, right? And so instead of having to borrow that audience from the influencer, they've spent the time to build the audience, build the theater, build the stage. And guess what? Oh, they're the premium sponsor all the time because they own the ad inventory, right? And so it's actually coming back to that previous conversation where you were talking about that idea of the curtain.
Yeah, I mean, the example I always gave before I really started talking about this more was that Home Depot or Lowe's should just buy HGTV. Like HGTV is where people who spend a lot of money on Home Depot or Lowe's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure they're spending millions of dollars a year to advertise in all of that programming. Why don't they just own it and then make money from other people and investing in it as well? They'd probably come out a lot greener and create a lot more opportunity for really cool partnerships, or at least things that look like partnerships with the audience of HGTV, if people didn't know that Home Depot owned them. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this strategy. I think Hurst buying local newspapers in Texas to upsell their existing magazines that are related to the sports section and the art and leisure section and each one of those things, or Time Magazine for the world affairs section, or what, I don't know what the properties they own are, but I think it was Vogue. Yeah. You know, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant marketing strategy. And I think the biggest takeaway before we wrap up here is you should be looking at small blogs in your space. You should be looking at small newsletters in your space to buy. And then you can hire a fractional head of sales, or you could have someone on your existing sales or marketing team start selling ads in that newsletter, in that blog, in whatever that media property is. I tell people all the time that, again, Marketing Max is a character. It's a media company. It's not exactly my personality. It's not my personal brand. It's a media company. And so now with AI, you can go to, Nano Banana, Gemini's new photo.
Yeah, the first mention of Nano Banana, it took us a few weeks to mention it on the podcast here, but we had to.
But you can go to Nano Banana and you can have it create a hyper realistic image of a human. And then you can create, if you're a consulting firm, it could be Consulting Charlie. If you are a dog food brand, it could be Danny's dog food, and it's Danny, right? Like, you could create a character, and you could even create a whole cast of characters and have them all talk to each other. But really, really, really want you to think about what can you do to create your own media division. It's going to take a little bit more effort than you want to stand it up. No questions asked. You got to get the flywheel going. You got to figure out how to drive people to that. You got to start getting sales for newsletter advertisers or whatever it is. That's what my team does. Maxes.team, www.maxes.team. That's what we do for 50 plus clients right now. We're building their newsletter, but it's not just selling ads in the newsletter that can help you offset the cost of your existing marketing. It's also barters. It's also swaps. You could do partnerships with other companies where, every 5 clients that they send you, you're going to promote their product, their service, their anything. So I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend, if you want to scale more profitably, if you think you're spending too much on your marketing, or if you're afraid to spend money on marketing, instead of spending money testing a bunch of different Facebook ads, Google ads, cold email strategies, think about what your media company would be. Think about how you can grow that media division. There's tons of courses now. There's tons of free YouTube videos now from people who founded The Hustle, which sold for tens of millions of dollars, people who sold Morning Brew, which sold for like $75 or $80 million. People who sold Skim, all these newsletter focused media companies. Strongly, strongly, strongly recommend checking it out and doing this yourself.
It's been fantastic.
Negative CAC for life.
Negative CAC. That is the lesson for today.
See you guys next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Max show. It takes me and my team hours to produce it every single week, but it only takes you 15 seconds to hit that share button and text it to a friend, drop it in a Slack group, or share it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or any of your favorite social platforms. I appreciate you taking the time to check out my content. Have an awesome day.